year or something.
Dad, thanks. My dad's birthday yesterday.
Oh, did I put my things in your,
We had Shabbos lunch and then he left.
yes, for myself. I have to get some
I had 6 other people over at my place.
Claire, do you have a strong hagba? Like, can you?
I haven't done it.
Okay. Some people are really fun.
No, but I would like to be one of those people.
Yeah. I'm pretty okay with her saying that this team. Can I give you another? Sure. Yeah, Gabby. My guess is Robert Fisher will. The Gabby reached.
I don't know if I want to sit here. Yeah. Let me see. I meant to get a face toilet, which I am bringing back.
You're gonna bring it back.
I am. They're going to be trendy again, and you'll know that it's all down to me.
You're making it so.
Bringing what back?
Lace doily for young people.
I don't know that would have a style. They go out of style.
It did for young people. Except in Texas.
I
All right, get in this.
final time is the official call time.
Yeah, I know.
I would prefer to call back and just stay back.
Pardon me? Not assigned. Do you need a laner?
No, I probably not. There's probably someone coming. I was just curious. How's it going?
I'm okay. How are you?
Okay. Do you have a yard site this week or no?
No.
Just coming to hear Claire.
I'm coming here to.
My colleague from Houston.
Is it Lily?
It is.
I just met her. I hung out with her this afternoon a bit.
Any cards?
No, I was, invited to Brianna Kaplan's.
Sure, I can do.
And they're really
I can daven. I
And
can
Lily
read.
came over
Whatever you.
So I got to meet her too.
I need to have that.
Yeah, she was so lovely. Yeah, I liked her so much.
Claire, thanks for speaking with me. I appreciate it.
Of course. That's why I'm here. I love to do it.
Thank you.
Great. Over for them so they could be together.
Good.
Good to see you.
We have this chair here open.
It's okay, I put my stuff down under there, but thank you.
I have a separate assistant. Anybody seats down? Daily.
Right.
Because we're twice daily menu and we have so much to cover. I think there's an open seat there, Karina, if you want. Right to his right, yeah?
Ken?
I'm also not the assigned
That's
laner.
what I was
It's Kitisa, right?
I don't know what it is. Let's take a look. Pardon me. I'm sorry.
said I would.
What's that? I can. Yeah, but I'm sure Steve can do it better than I can.
No, the opposite, actually.
She's already on my beer.
The only,
Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll begin services on page 214 in Lev Shalem. Asher yeshvi v'techa, od yeleluch hasela. Tehillat Adonai Yiraver Pi, Vivarech Kol Basar Shem Koshol Olam Va'ed, V'anachnu Nivarech Yamei Tavi Ad Olam. Hallelujah. U'Zion Goel Shavi Fesh Shavi Yaakov Nei Adonai. V'Nizah B'Rivim. V'yata Kadosh Yoshev Tilot Yisrael, V'karzel Zev Yamar, Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot Melech L'Aretz Kevodo. V'tizaini ruach v'shmacharai kol rash gadol, Baruch Kevod Adonai mimekomo. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yivtichu v'chayudei shemlecha, ki lo azavta drashecha Adonai, Adonai chavetz l'ma'an tiko, yagdil Torah v'yadir. Yikata v'yikata shmei rabba, v'yamad divrei kirotei, v'yamlik malchutei b'chayichon, v'yamechon, u'chayidecho beit Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kariv, v'yimru amein, ishmi rabba v'barach, Le'elam olayim yiparach v'yishtabach, yipar v'yitshama v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal, shmei d'kodesh b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, damiram yama v'imru, Amen. V'ani tefilati l'Adonai et ratzon, Elohim v'roch chesdecha. V'yibin Aaron, v'yomer Moshe, Kum Adonai v'yifutzu ivecha, v'yenusim misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tzitzei Torah, u'dvar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shnatan Torah limo Yisrael, v'kedushato.
Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
I don't trust I could fit behind.
Is anyone that we're not aware of assigned to read today? At least the first few. Parshat Ki Tisa can be found on page 523 in the Red Chumashim. If you're following from home, it's chapter 30 of the book of Shemot, verse 11.
It's very possible I was supposed to. I think Claire is our Shani. Thank you.
I'm leading. I can't go.
Right. Claire, reach on her Shani. I'll reach on since I know who's coming in.
Attorney, was there a yacht on it?
I brought it in from the other room.
Okay.
Oh, and you're, of course, the first yeah, so. Joey, we do need you.
Okay.
No, don't. I think I tried to do too many things. Okay, here we go. V'tigalei v'terei malchodolei bisman karov v'chom pleitatein v'leitatamo b'tzelechenu chasrachamim uratzom v'omar amin hakol havu godaleinu nuchavod laTorah tamod. Esther Miriam. Manitzur Mordechai la the Arishona Baruch Shetan Torah the Mo Yisrael Bikdushato. Vayipolchem Chayom.
Baruchu et Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'Lamad. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah.
Vaydaber Adonai al Moshe lemor ki tisa et rosh b'nei Yisrael lifkudehem v'nadanu ishkofer nafsho l'Adonai b'chorotam v'loyeh bahem negef b'chorotam ze yidnu kol ha'over l'pikudim machatzit hashekel b'shekel hakodesh esrim geirah hashekel machatzit hashekel truma l'Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet chayei olam eta b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yaman. Abraham. Ben Zalfruma Valiashliha.
Page 524, verse 14.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shebachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Kol ha'over l'pikudim mibein esrim shana v'mala yitain trumat Adonai asher lo yarbeh v'hadal lo yami b'machatzit hashakel לתת את שומת אדוני לכפר נפשותיכם ולקחת כסף וכיפורים מאת בני ישראל ונתת אותו על עבודת אוהל מועד והיה לבני ישראל לזיכרון לפני אדוני לכפר על נפשותיכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod.
Zara.
One more time.
Herschel?
Herschel.
Zara. My mom, Zara.
Benza.
What's your father's name?
Herschel.
What's your name?
Oh, Reuben.
Reuven.
Reuven Herschel with Zara. We got there. Lali Ashley Sheet.
Page 524, verse 17, last line.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור ועשית כיור נחושת וחנון נחושת לרוחצה ונתת אותו בין אוהל מועד ובין המזבח ונתת שם מים ורחצו אהרון ובניו ממנו את ידיהם ויד רגליהם בבואם אל אוהל מועד ירחצו מים ולא ימותו והגישתם אל המזבח לשרת להקטיר אישה לאדוני ורחצו ידיהם רגליהם ולא ימותו והייתה להם חוק עולם לא ולזרעו לדורותם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod. Hamagbia Tamod. Hagolelet. Those who are lifting and dressing the Torah come forward. And please rise for the lifting and wrapping of the Torah. Does anyone in the room have an Almale to be said this week? Or come on forward. Anyone else? Yeah, you get behind them in line. Okay. Herb, do you want to hold the Torah? Okay, who's this for? What's that? I'll say it, yeah. Who's it for?
Oh, for my mom.
For your mom? Okay, I'll pause and I'll ask for her name in the middle, okay? El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamramim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Shechina V'malat Kedoshim Ujorim Kizor Arakia Masirim Lenishmat Ruchavat Esther Shelcha Leolama V'ganei Tentei Menuchata Anabala Rachamim Hastirei Habaseter Knafecha Leolamim Utzor Bitzor Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachlata V'tanuach V'shalom Am Nishkava V'noar Amen. Do you want to share one memory?
My mom was from Slovakia, came here as a refugee she was in Auschwitz and a slave laborer for a while. She's a skilled tailor, could make dresses from scratch, took care of the family, took care of me and my sister and 4 grandchildren, who now have 11 great-grandchildren for my sister and 11 great-nieces and nephews.
Yizikra Baruch, may your memory be for a blessing.
Thank you.
And you can pass that along to Gary behind you. Gary, who's this for? For your mother, okay. I'll pause in his mom's father's name. Frederick, does that sound right? No. His mom's father's name? Yeah, we can use Friedrich, that's okay. Yeah, the Shoshana Buffer, okay. Himali Rachamim Shochein Bamramim Hamasei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina V'malat Kedoshim Utorim Kizor Kemasirim Lenishmat Shoshana Bat Friedrich Shelcha Leolama V'ganei Tentei Menuchata Hana Balarachamim Hasiri Habaseter Knafecha Leolamim Utzor Bitzor Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachlata V'tanuach B'shalom Am Nishkava V'nomar Amen. You want to share one story of your mom?
One little story from my mom. My mom was born in Germany and left the war before the Holocaust for the German Jews, but she was a nursery school teacher and she loved dealing with kids and everything else. So she raised my brother and me very well. Thank you.
Steve or Alan, would you go over and see if there's anybody over there when I ask if anyone online has an Male, please? Please indicate if you've got an El Male to be said for you if you're online. Just not sure I'll be able to hear. It's a little quiet in here. Nope. Okay. Great. So I'll take the Torah from you 1 second. You want me to just shift this on? Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, ki diskav Shem Olavado, Hodol Yetzer Shamayim, Vayarim Keren Le'amo, Shila Lecho Chasitav, Leave Yisrael Lam Kerovo, hallelujah. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadish Yameinu kekedem Oh Chadish 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 Yameinu kekedem Oh Chadish 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 Yameinu kekedem Oh Chadish 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 Yameinu kekedem. Middle of 222. He's got Davi Kadesh Mirabam, Yamadi Raker, David Malik, Mako Tibakon, Vimekon, Ufayet Kobet Israel Bagalav, Isman Kariv, Vimru Amen, Ishmi Rabam, Varach, Lialam, Meamaya, Ibaraf, Ishabaf, Ibar Vitraman, Vit Nase, Vita Dar, Vita Le, Vita Lash, Mede Kudisha, Beri, Hune, Lamin Kover Katav, Shirata, Shishukatav Nekamata, Damiran, Biama. Vimru Amen. The whispered private Amidas are cited individually while standing. It begins on page 223. If you haven't yet completed your own private Amidah, please continue at your own pace. The repetition begins on page 223. When we get to the Kedusha on page 225, you're invited to join in, and with the blessing Ha'el HaKadosh, you may be seated. Again, the repetition begins on 223. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachav Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Gonei HaKol v'Zocher Chasei Avot U'Mivi Goel Livnei V'nei L'man Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Fokeinu Moshiach B'Magim Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufokei Tzara Atah Gibor Le'Lam Adonai Mechei Meitim Atah Rav L'Oshia Mashiv Ruach U'Morid HaGashem Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed Mechei Meitim B'Rachamim Rabim Samek Tov Le'im V'Rofei Cholim U'Atir Asurim Kayim Emunotol D'Shnei Afar Mi Chamocha Bal Gevorot U'Meida Melach Melech Mimitu Chayim Asmiach Yeshua V'Neman Atah L'Chayot Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai B'Chayei HaMeitim Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam kashem shemokdishim oto b'shmei marom כך כתוב לידויך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור Imloch Adonai Leolam Elohek Zion Lidor Vador Hallelujah Lidor Vador Nagikothecha Unetzach Netzachim Kedushatecha Nakdish Veshivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yamush Lelam Vahed Kimlach Kadol V'Kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai HaKadosh Ata Chavishimcha Echad Mikamacha Yisrael Goyecha Ba'aretz Tiferet Gedula Vater Teshua Yom Nucha Kedusha Dimcha Natat Avraham Yagel Yitzchak Yiranin Yaakov Manav Yanuchuvo Menuchat Avandava Menuchat Emet V'Emunah Menuchat Shalom V'Shalva V'Shket V'Vetach Menuchat Shlema Sheta Rotzeba Yakiru V'Necha V'Yinuki Mitacha Himenuchatam V'Yom Menuchatam Yakdishu Et Shemecha Eloheinu V'Elohei Avoteinu Retzivim Nuchateinu Kadeshinu ומצוותיך, ותנחלקנו בתורתך, שמענו בטובך, ושמחנו בשורתך, ותאר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, ותחילנו אדוני אלוהינו, באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך, ונוחבה ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת, רצי אדוני אלוהינו במלך ישראל לתפילתם, ושבת עבודה לביתך, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון, תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך, ותחזינה עינינו, בשובך לציון ברחמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון, מתאים אנחנו לך, שתהו אדוני לנו. הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך, ומרחם כי לא תמוך שדך, מעולם קיווינו לך וכולם יתברך, ויתרום שמך מגן תמיד לעולם ועד וכל החיים ימשך סלע, והללו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך. אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולחני להודות, שלום רב ישראל עמך, ואל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם, יטל מלך אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך, לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, וישלומך ברוך אתה אדוני, הברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. צדקתך צדק לעולם, ותורתך אמת, צדקתך אלוהים עד מרום, אשר עשית גדולות אלוהים מי כמוך, צדקתך אריאל, משפטך טוב רבה, דם ובהמה, תושיע אדוני, יתגדל ויקדש מרבה, ביום הדברה קרטיבים לך מלכותי בחיכון ומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, אמרו אמן, ישמי רבה ברח לעולם וממיה, יתברך וישתבח ויבר וישמם ושא, ויתדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה, בריך leila. Min kol berkata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechmata. Tamiram b'yoma v'imru amen. Ki kabal tzalotonu tondo kol Yisrael. Kadam avon di v'shmaya v'imru amen. Yesh lamarabba min shmaya. V'chim alenu v'il kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osi shalom v'imru mavu yes shalom aleinu. V'il kol Yisrael v'imru amen. 231 aleinu. Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol. Kakati b'George Adonai Melech Le'olam v'Evenemar v'Haya Adonai L'Melech L'Kol Haaretz v'Yom Hahu Yihi Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad. Mourners Kaddish together, page 232. Yitkadal v'Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. V'yamad Yivra Kirutei v'yamlich Malchutei. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiram b'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yashar koach to everybody who was honored today, in particular Yashar koach to Rabbi Kligfeld for laning Torah, probably something I was supposed to do, so thanks for having my back. And we are going to continue in just a few minutes with some amazing learning, our last opportunity to have Claire teach us, Claire Brewer-Davidson, who, wait, did I say it backwards again? I did, it's Davidson Bruder. Thank you. Okay, I caught myself though. Claire Davidson Bruder, who is here as an ambassador from the Jewish Theological Seminary. She taught an extraordinary shiur last night, as well as a Vort and Kabbalat Shabbat. She shared beautiful words of Torah this morning as a part of the sanctuary services, and now we're grateful to her for bringing us teaching. I won't spoil anything about what it's on, but I think you'll like it. And not just for its quality, but for its content. It's good stuff. So go ahead and get yourself something to eat. Even if you're at home, go get yourself something to nourish yourself. And then Claire will begin teaching in just a few minutes. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks, Joey. Okay, one last note of introduction because there are people here. There are people here who haven't yet gotten a chance to learn from Claire or hear an introduction. So I just want to reprise a little bit of what I said last night in introducing Claire. Last time she visited, she shared a bit about the time that she spent in prison chaplaincy. I realized I phrased that funny. Made it really interesting for a second. In prison chaplaincy. And recently I've gotten a chance to hear a little bit about her work with teens in our movement and in helping them do advocacy on the Hill in a new program called Ruchot, of which she'll be a major captain in the coming year. And in addition to that, she's also been chosen by Park Avenue Synagogue as their next intern for the next couple of years. And you're going to see why in just a moment. So I want to hand this bima over to Claire and ask, it very quickly, when there's side conversation in here, it very quickly becomes impossible to hear for the people next to you. There are even people talking right now. I'm going to ask, even more than usual, if we could really keep it down, except that Claire really wants you to participate loudly too. So when it comes time to participate, please speak up. Again, Claire, the bima is yours.
Thank you. Do you want to maybe start sending these around? So, yeah, maybe I'll give my intro first. You're right. I like to give a little surprise introduction. So, this evening's topic of conversation came out of the fact that I am really dreading Purim this year. And I feel like a total Grinch. How can I possibly be so boring and so anti-fun to dread Purim? So I think for me, there are two reasons I don't always look forward to Purim. The first is that I struggle a little bit with just how wrapped up Purim gets in drinking culture. I feel like I am back in college and everyone is going to a frat party and I want to hang out with my friends and drink tea and read a book. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The second reason I get a little grinchy about Purim is that I worry because, as Cantor Chorney mentioned, I do a lot of work with kids and teens. I get worried that we put so much emphasis on Purim as the fun holiday that it really kind of comes back to stab us in the back when we're talking about other holidays. We forget to make other holidays fun too. I'm very pro silliness, and I don't think it should be confined to one day a year. And I think that, coupled with the fact that Purim isn't a chag, it doesn't have the same holiday rules that we get, on Passover, Rosh Hashanah, what have you, it just feels a little less special to me. And so for all these reasons, when Purim comes around, start whining. I ask my wife, do we really have to go to shul? Can't we just stay home and go to bed early? And so tonight's shiur is coming out of my desire to turn my mindset around and find some deeper spiritual meaning in Purim and to get myself excited for Thursday. Let's hand around the sheets. So the first teaching on the sheet, which I'll start talking about now because many people are familiar with it, comes from the Talmud and reads, Rava said, one is obligated to become inebriated on Purim until he cannot tell the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. So this is where we see kind of the root of Purim's drinking culture. I'll also add in my little bit of grinchiness that this also comes with an aspect of anxiety. One piece of my professional puzzle that Rabbi Chorny did not mention is that I, among other things, am the resident director for the List College Dormitory, which is JTS's undergrad dorm. And so when Simchat Torah and Purim roll around, we're making calls to EMTs. We're worrying about our students' safety. And so what I want to offer you is a way to understand not being able to tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai that isn't necessarily reliance on getting totally drunk. So if you look at the second source on your sheet, you'll see straight out of the Megillah. And so on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, when the king's command and decree were to be executed, the very day on which the enemies of the Jews had expected to get them in their power, the opposite happened, and the Jews got their enemies in power. And so to me, we don't have to be confused about who Haman is and who Mordechai is in order to flip the script. Rather, we can think about what it means to flip the script. Venahafoch hu is what we read in Megillat Esther. Venahafoch hu, the opposite happened. And so when I read this pasuk, I find that it can inspire me to take a moment and think about our world as it is. And I just want to invite you to join me in a little exercise of imagination. This might be like a little touchy-feely in here, but that's okay. I want to invite people to close your eyes if you're comfortable. And think for a moment about something in this world that you believe to be unfair. Something in this world, it could be in, current events, or it could be something in your life, someone who has treated you a certain way. Something unfair. And now, I want you to think about the feelings that come with that. The feelings that come with the unfairness, the uncertainty, the fear, the sadness, maybe even the despair, when we feel like we can't change the way things are. And now, I want to invite you, nahafochu, to imagine the opposite. Imagine if this unfairness, if this inequality, if this mistreatment did not exist, whether that's in the world or in your life. How would you feel? How would you feel if the world were upside down, if the situation were different? To me, it is this feeling that Purim inspires. And you can open your eyes now, unless you are lost in your fantasy of the world as better than it is and you want to stay there. To me, Purim serves as an invitation to imagine things as the opposite of what they are. And in my experience, especially in rabbinical school, adults take things too seriously. There's so little opportunity for silliness, and there's so little opportunity in our lives for imagination. It feels like, okay, as an adult, I can have creativity. I can solve problems at work. I can solve problems in the home. I can write. I can be creative. But the muscle of imagination is one we do not flex. And sure, there are substances that can do that imagining for us, that can change our feelings for us, that can allow us to enter into a self that is far less self-conscious, far more in touch with our inner child. I hope you'll excuse me really for this touchy-feely language. But we actually don't have to rely on alcohol or any other substances to confuse our brains into thinking the world is different or opposite than what it is, because we can choose to imagine that. And so to that end, I've included at the bottom here a little piece from a woman named Ariel Krull, who is the founder and spiritual leader of Sela, which is a Jewish addiction organization and resource in Brooklyn. And Ariel is also in school to become a rabbi. And this is part of Sela's annual guide that they publish about how to celebrate Purim in a way that can be inclusive to those who are sober. And she writes, consider the idea that intoxication on this holiday may bring us to a place of wonder might be a well-masked invitation to see people in ways we do not usually imagine, including ourselves. It very well may be a message to us to see the potential in our world, including our own. We should become so intoxicated in the potential that is within us that we open up our minds to seeing new unfolding truths and our hearts to accepting them. I'm curious to hear, before we move on to kind of the second of our three ideas, how this lands for you. Do you feel convinced that this is what the exhortation to become intoxicated represents? And I'm curious, if not, where you see kind of the point. What is the point of getting drunk on Purim? Yeah.
There's no obligation to get drunk on Purim, especially if you can't stand alcohol. Where does the fact that the American Cancer Society, the Alzheimer's Association, the American Gastroenterological Association, all have said avoid alcohol, and it's how can anything that causes hangovers and blackouts and memory loss be good for your brain, that kind of stuff. So there's no obligation to get drunk on Purim. You don't have to get drunk.
Yeah, there's no obligation, nothing in the Torah telling us to get drunk on Purim, but there is this piece in the Talmud, which we generally see as our compendium of law, that is encouraging us and even saying that we are obligated. What do you mean? We're reading it right here.
But I disagree with it. Okay.
Sure, well, what I'm trying to make a case for is I disagree with it too, is what I'm saying, but I can't pretend like it's not there. So what I'm trying to do is offer a way for us to interpret what the meaning is behind the words and be able to pursue the feeling they're trying to capture without necessarily having to get so drunk we forget ourselves and our story.
Well, I don't see how hangovers and blackouts and like that open a world of creativity. I really don't.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I disagree with the whole thing.
Right, so that's what I'm trying to talk about. All right, any other, yeah.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I think that the concept described here is important for people who have problems with substances. Having said that, I want to speak up in favor of inebriation on Purim,
Please.
which is that it's not only to be able to forget the difference between Haman and Mordecai, but it's actually to celebrate. And it's actually important that we have a holiday that is fun and celebratory and may include getting hammered, right? And this reads a little bit to me like, you want to talk about touchy-feely, like when I was closer to your age and people would say, oh, I'm high on life. I'm like, dude, take a shot of Slivovitz, it'll do some good, right? So I think this is great for people with substance abuse, but I do think that having a lot to drink on Purim is also a good thing.
So I don't disagree with you, and I want to be clear, I'm not in any way trying to cast judgment on people who do get super drunk on Purim, except maybe the freshmen who live in my dorm. But to me, the question for me as a rabbinical student who doesn't really like drinking is, how can I make meaning out of the component of Purim that is alcohol related and find the deeper meaning? Because everything you're describing is fun, but I guess where I'm sitting is that I feel like I have so many opportunities to have fun with my friends, to go out, to drink, to dance, whatever. I don't need a Jewish holiday to tell me I have to do that. And I think that's where I struggle with taking Purim seriously in a spiritual way. Does that make sense? And this is like, again, part of the reason I'm asking you guys all of these questions is because I actually don't know what the answer is, and because I am here to try to learn from you. Yeah, I mean, it can definitely.
There's no obligation on any holiday that you have to get drunk. There's no obligation on any Jewish holiday to get drunk.
I hear you. And we are reading in the Talmud that it is telling us that. I know that it feels confusing and it feels hard to square with how we think and how we feel. And that's exactly what Jewish learning is about, is negotiating this tension in between what we see in the text and what we feel in our hearts. Yeah, AJ.
And I am going to borrow this because I've been instructed to do so in the past. And I have no idea whether it's working or not, but I'd like to kind of turn and address, I think it really does address where you're going with this, which is, why is Purim such a hidden holiday? It seems like there's a lot of not just implied misrepresentation or obscuration. God's name is not mentioned, et cetera, et cetera. And this issue here of being so intoxicated that you can't tell the difference between the good guy and the bad guy, or maybe even the difference between good and evil. As human beings might define those two things, whatever God may define them as, we really don't understand. So where is Purim taking us as we try to grapple with that issue of, this is going way beyond, it's transcending, why do bad things happen to good people? But it takes that question and really starts to make it, morph it into a psychedelic trip.
Yes, thank you for that. It is also the perfect transition to the next page. We're going to take a brief break from Purim and talk for a couple minutes about next week's Parsha, Ki Tisa, as a way to enter into this. So AJ brings up the question, the fundamental, foundational human question: why do bad things happen to good people? I've been doing recently a lot of reading and a lot of work on trauma theory and the ways in which trauma theory is developed by psychologists interacts with our Bible and with our understanding of it. So there is this psychologist named Dr. Janoff Butler. Oh my gosh, I'm panicking, you guys. I've forgotten the name. It's Dr. Janoff Bullman. Dr. Janoff Bullman tells us that the reason we ask this question, why do bad things happen to good people, is because we all either have or want to have three fundamental assumptions about ourselves and the world around us. The first assumption is that the world is a good and benevolent place. The second assumption is that life has meaning. And the third assumption is that we as human beings are worthy of goodness. And so when we take these assumptions that we either hold or, as she argues, instinctually as humans want to hold within ourselves, we enter this quagmire where we cannot understand why bad things happen to good people. If the world is a benevolent place, bad things should not happen to good people. And so, many people who undergo various forms of trauma end up finding ways, small ways, to blame themselves for what they're going through. And so when I read our texts, whether it's the Megillah or whether it's Parshat Ki Tisa, what I am thinking about is those who wrote down this text and what they were going through, because these texts were developed in the late 6th century BCE during the Babylonian exile, during an enormous trauma for the Israelites. And when I try to put myself into those shoes, I can't help but imagine that the Israelites must have felt like we did something wrong. We did something to deserve this. God is punishing us for something. And I think that we can see that theme reflected in a lot of our texts. So in Parshat Ki Tisa this week, we read about the story of the golden calf. The Israelites, led by Aaron, their priest, build an idol and worship an idol because they're worried that God has withdrawn from them. And they're seeking protection. They're scared and they're seeking protection. And God tries to punish them very, very harshly. He decides he's going to kill all of them. He's going to wipe all of the Israelites off the face of the earth except Moses. And he's going to create a new line of descendants from Moses, who will be God's chosen people. And Moses, like Abraham many years before him, argues back against God. And he is able to convince God to rescind that punishment. But every time I read that parsha, I can't help but imagine the way those writing down the version of the text we have today must have felt, to think that building one idol, making one mistake, is something that God could justifiably kill them over. And so we turn to page 2 and to the hidden face of God and to God's anger against the Israelites. Also, as AJ mentioned, God's name is not used in the Megillah. God is not mentioned in the Megillah. What can that possibly mean? And so, in Hulin, we're asked, so where in the Torah can we find an allusion to what then happens in the Megillah? And Rav Matana replies with a verse, or 2 verses. Then my anger shall be kindled against them on that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall come upon them, so that they will say in that day, have not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? And I will hide my face on that day for all the evil which they have wrought, in that they are turned to other gods. And you can see right below, I've included 3 psukim, or the same 2 psukim, if you want to read them in the Hebrew. And so this is seeming to imply that the reason God doesn't show up in the Megillah is because he is hiding his face from the Jews of the time, because he is angry with them for their misbehavior. Yeah. We're getting there.
And that is that if you contrast the politics of Passover to the politics of Purim. Purim, on Pesach, God is doing everything, at least according to the Haggadah. Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo shaliach, the Holy One, blessed be He, Himself, etc., etc. And it even says, B'chvodo v'atzmo, God is doing everything. What makes Purim distinct is here we're left to our own, to our wiles, to a leadership that's reluctant to assume leadership, that has to deal with the world in a very basic way without God to intervene in a salvational way. Now, in a very real sense, that's where Purim is. And the rabbis are saying God is there even by hiding his face, but the Megillah is essentially saying you're on your own now, do it and figure out how to help to protect yourself, preserve yourself, get yourself through the combination. So it's a matter of political wiles, leadership that assumes a position, and ultimately self-defense. It's a world without God. And Yitz Greenberg would say that this is a world in which it's the third stage, in which we are now the senior partners and God is saying time to grow up. And just in comment to your first element, to raise a healthy kid, we have to say 2 things to the kid that are both lies. We have to say the world is safe and we're here to protect you. And the world is not necessarily safe, and we cannot protect the kid, at least all the way through. So when a kid grows up, he understands the world is not safe necessarily, and there's no one there to protect you. Congratulations, you're an adult, now protect yourself.
Yeah.
Good things happen to bad people also. I mean, the reverse is true. We can question when bad things happen to good people, but the fact is good things happen to bad people. I don't know how many examples of that there are in the Torah necessarily, but it works both ways. Just, bad people have had their share of nachas, and that's what they're asked to. So it works both ways.
I'm trying to connect this in my head to the previous source about becoming so inebriated on Purim, and I'm kind of struggling, particularly because I noticed in the first stanza, if you will, the word yain isn't specifically mentioned, at least that I saw. Your Hebrew is probably better than mine. But so the idea of becoming inebriated on wine doesn't fully read to me. It might be a different kind of inebriation. I know the vocab probably refers to drinking specifically, which is why that's in parentheses. But the thing that I'm wondering is if that idea of drinking to excess almost is that sort of traumatic response. We're in the Babylonian exile. We think that God has forsaken us. So now we want to institute a holiday in which we drink as a kind of way of avoiding our problems, which feels very sad to me, but it seems also kind of very human.
Yeah, I think the question we continue into here is how to understand God's withdrawal from human affairs in Megillat Esther. So you brought up, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name. Michael brings up one interpretation, which is that this is maybe a little bit God pushing us out of the nest, promoting us to senior partners, and kind of putting the onus on us. And I like that. I really do like that. And I feel much more comfortable with it than what I'm reading in this text here from Chulin, which is telling us that the reason that God's face is hidden is because it's a punishment for a misdeed, is because God is angry. And I think part of the reason that I find that so challenging is that the way Megillat Esther happens, without God's name specifically mentioned, looks a lot like the way our lives happen today. Our canonical Bible closed, and we stopped having this interventionist God swooping into human affairs. And to me, this text feels almost heartbreaking when I compare it to our world today. Because to me, the question then becomes, is the reason that God is withdrawn from the world, first of all, is God withdrawn from the world today? And then if God is withdrawn from the world today, is that because we, as humans, as a Jewish community, as individuals, whatever, have done something to arouse his ire? And so, Michael, I like that.
There's one more element.
Please.
To challenge the Talmud on this. Look, Purim ends up being the winning story. If God was angry and God withdrew, well, we did pretty good on our own. And we end up in a winning strategy. The winning strategy is we end up in power, we end up secure. Mordechai ends up being the prime minister, and Esther the queen. Not a bad thing. If that's the hidden face of God, it doesn't manifest anger.
Right. But so then what I don't understand, because I agree with you on that, right? We understand Purim to be about the hidden face of God, not the turned away face of God. But then what is this text doing? Why is this text here trying to tell us that it is anger?
Well, look, the text is based on a theology of reward and punishment. And that's an essential part of the prophetic motif. It's what we see in Deuteronomy. It's what we see in the prophets of ancient Israel. It's what we see in sin and repentance. So it's based on that theology. He's trying to make sense of what's happening. In a way, the Megillah undermines that notion, and especially if you consider it anger, then how are we going to deal with the fact that the reality is its success? And, bravo, you won.
Right.
Not a bad thing. Let me just add, there's a line by Emil Fackenheim, who is the great Canadian Jewish philosopher, who bases himself on the notion, we won't go into it, but the notion of what is the Jewish condition today? And he said the tradition is that Nachshon ben Aminadav walked in to the sea, and only when the sea reached his nostrils did the sea begin to part. And Fackenheim comments, you want to know the Jewish condition today? Welcome, my fellow swimmers.
you want to know the Jewish condition today, welcome my fellow swimmers. That's a hard and heavy message. And certainly not. And so I want us to turn to our next page as we consider our spiritual imperative to find God's hidden countenance. We can't, at least I feel, you're welcome to disagree with me later after Mariv, because I don't want to put us behind schedule, but I don't think we can just accept a God who has withdrawn his countenance, but rather we have to continue to pursue God and to pursue a world where we are able to see the divine. And so we return to Purim, and we return to the question of what Purim can do for us and how we can make meaning out of it that adds on to the fun we find within it. And so our last source on page 3 tells us about an incident involving Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yoshua, who becomes ill and faints. When he wakes up, his father asks him, "What did you see when you were not with us, when you were unconscious?" Yosef says to him, "I saw an inverted world. Those who are above were below, and those who are below were above." He's jumbled. He doesn't know what to make of this, but his father, a sage, tells him, "You have seen a clear world." The clear world, the truth about the world as it should be, cannot exist if we can only look at the world for what we see in front of us. And so my own kavanah, my own intention for Purim this year is to work to see the world as inverted, to work to see a world that is completely different from how it is today. Is it better? Is it worse? I don't know. But I'm hoping that in doing so, not only will Purim feel for me like it has a purpose, but that it will shatter my vision of the status quo, shatter my assumptions, and allow me some creativity, as I hope it will allow you to think and to imagine what our world can be. Thank you.
As your flag to clear, Joey, can you lead us in a very quick Shir Hamalot and the invitational, and then we'll go quiet. You can pick up the benchers, page 42 or 47, depending on the bencher you have in front of you, and then I'll ask that we'll go quiet to finish the Birkat Hamazon. We'll come back together for Kaddish Rabbanan and Mariv.
Shir Hamalot b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kechol amim hazim alei zechok pinu ulshonenu rina az yomiru v'agoyim higdil Adonai lasoti mele higdil Adonai lasoti manu hayinu samechim shuva Adonai et shavitenu Ka'afikim ba'negev hazorim bedima berina yiktoru haloch elechu vacho no se meshech hazara bo yavo verina no se alumotav Rabotai nevarech Yishem anayim v'rach me'tav elolam b'shir chavirai nerech shechal mishalo Baruch Eloheinu shechalnu mishalov tuvo, chayinu baruch hu baruch shemo, baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hazan et haolam kulo betuvo, bechein bechesed uvrachamim, hu notein lechem lechol basar, ki leolam chasdo, uvtuvo hagadol, Tamid l'chasar lanu ve'ayachsar lanu mazon le'olam va'ed bavur shemo hagadol ki lozan u'farnes la'kol u'meitiv la'kol u'mechin mazon l'chol beriotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai hazan et ha'kol Nadel Chanle. You're just not going to have Kim Master.
Kadish to Rabbanan, page 38. Yikadal, Vidkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalmad, Yibrach, Yerutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chay Dechol Beit Yisrael, Magalav, Yisman Kari, V'yamru, Amen.
Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah V'barach V'yolam V'omei Omayah.
Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yifar, Chamam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Dekudusha, B'richu.
Richu.
Berachata, B'shirata, V'shpachata, V'nechamata, Damaran, V'yalma, V'yamru,
Amen.
Al Yisrael, V'al Rabbanan, V'al Tamidehon, V'al Kol Tamidehon, V'al Kol Man, Da'askin V'yaraita, Di V'yatra, Hadain, V'di B'chol Atar V'yatar, Yehei Lahon, L'chon, Shlama Rabba, China V'chista V'rachamin, V'chayin Arichin, Umzona Ravicha, before Kanamin Kodama Vahondi Vishmaya Vimru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Tovim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen.
Amen.
Uberachamav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Vimru Amen.
Amen. Weekday Mariv begins on page 264. I invite you to rise for the Baruch Hu and be seated after the Baruch Hu. I'll make a reminder of this when we get there again, but as you notice, it's very easy in this room for Kaddish to get messy quickly. It's hard to hear one another. And most importantly, we lean into the notion of slowest common denominator. We want anyone either here or on live stream to be able to follow along, even if they need it to be a slightly slower pace. So I'll ask that we lean into that notion altogether when we get back to Kaddish. Again, we're on 264.
Urachum Yechaper Bon Volash Kiver Bala Shiva Public Chamato Adonai Oshia Melach Anenu V'Yom Korenu Baruch Hu Et Adonai Hamborach Adonai Morach Le'olam Ve'ebrach Et Adonai El Chai V'Kayam Tamidim Lo Chalenu Le'olam Ve'baruch Ata Adonai Hamari V'Aravim Abadu Kim Chayin of Yorach Yamin of Ehem Negei Man Valali Vavat Chata Sirmen Le'olamim Baruch Ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ma Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai Elohechem Emer V'Emunah Kazov V'Kayam Aleinu Ki Hu Adonai V'Ein Zlatov V'Nachnu Yisrael Hamocha V'Nei Amlachim. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ונס ולחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולה מי כמוך בליבנו מי כמוך בקודש נוראתי לא תוסיף מלכותך רוע ונחה קיים לפני משה זה אלינו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ונאמר כבד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל שכיבנו ושמור צאתנו ואוהנו לחיים ולשלום יטבי עד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני אמן ברוך אדוני לציון שוכן וברוך שם כבודו לעולם במלך אשר בידך כי המלכות שלך היא וליום היה תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו יתקדש יקדש שמי רבה ביעלמא דיברך תבן מיך מעבודי בחייכון ובמכון וחי דכל בית ישראל בגלל בזמן קריב אמרו אמן וישמר רבם ורח לעולם לעמי עמי ברח וישתבח ויתפאר תשבם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלם ויתעלש ולקדושה בריחו ויעלם מכל ברכה ושיר הדעת וגדולה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
Whispered Private Amidah begins on 270.
279. יתגדל ויגדל שמר רבה, יעלם עד ירח וטבע מלך, וטבע חי יכון, אביום יכון, וחד יכול בית ישראל בגמר בזמן קריב ימרו אמן. איש בנו במרח, לעולם ומעמי יברח, וישתבח ויתפאר שמו, וינשא ויתהדר ותלך ותלש ונקודשה בריחו. יעלם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה וימרו אמן. והנה אמר אדוני אלוהינו אלינו מעשה ידינו, קודנה אלינו מעשה ידינו, קודנה יושב בסתר אלוהים לצל שדי, לנו אמר לנו מעשה. יהוא יצליח חיים. יקרני ועיני עמו אנוכי בצרה חלציה ויחדהו אורך ימים אספיהו וירא בשועתי אורך ימים אספיהו וירא בשועתי. Page 216, second paragraph. ואתה קדוש יושע תילו ישוב הקר זה ויאמר קדוש 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 ותישאני רוח ואשמע אחרי כל רעש גדול ברוך אדוני ימלוך אמן. תיתן אמה ליעקב. יבטחו בך ידי שמך, כי לא עזבת דורשך, אדוני אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר, יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה. יעלם עד יברח וטבע מלך, וטבע חי יכון, אביום יכון, וכד לכל בית ישראל בגמר בזמן קריב ימרו אמן. לעולם לעמי יברח וישתבח ויתפאר שמו, וינשא ויתהדר ותלך ותלש ונקודשה בריחו. יעלם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה וימרו אמן. ותרצו אדוני ואותן לכל בית ישראל, קדם והוני ושמיא וימרו אמן. שלום רב מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ויעל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עשה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח אדוני. 281. ככתוב בתורתך אלוהים לא אוכלי למד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Page 282, Mourner's Kaddish, as together as we can.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
ילמד יברח ירותי וימליך מלכותי. וחייכון ויומייכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה וזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן.
Amen. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם לעמל מיה.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתשומם ויתנשא. יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה. חיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום מרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Amen. Yasher Koach, Rabbi Kligfeld, for leading us. And once again, Yasher Koach to Claire. This is it. We're wishing Claire a Nesiat Tavad. Do you want to come up and help lead Havdalah, perhaps? Just hold something or sing something? Wonderful. Really briefly, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., services take place here on campus for daily Minyan. And tomorrow Joey, you want to say it? Yes. Joey really wants to say it.
Actually, it's tonight before you go to bed, you'll set your clocks an hour ahead for daylight saving time. So morning meeting tomorrow will be 8 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time.
Which will feel like 7. Hooray! Right. And tomorrow evening, I believe that means that we are also moving forward an hour in the evening in our daily Minyan timing to accommodate. So I believe we're up to 6:50. Did I get that right? Are we up to 6:50 for Mincha now? We were at 5:50 this week, right? 6:45. Perfect. Okay, 6:45 this week. Don't show up at 6:50. In addition to that, I'll remind us that Purim is coming, as Claire's teaching reminded us. On Thursday, there's a fast day here. You'll read a notice from Rabbi Kligfeld, myself, Dr. Rothblum going out this week to remind us that this year, to share with this community that we're going to be utilizing the fast of Esther with sort of a double meaning, and fasting also on account of all those who are presumably fasting as part of their captivity. And we've got some special yellow ribbons that we'll give away early in the week so that one can put that on as they fast in solidarity. That fast day is on Thursday, and then of course Thursday night Purim. Please click around on the website, RSVP to the break the fast meal that night, et cetera, and join us for Purim. All right, Havdalah, let's do it. And we can, you mind hitting the switches, Becky?
That's so cute. What do you want me to hold?
There's spices. Spices.
Okay.
Here, I'll light it. Okay, I got it. Exactly. It's not you, it's this. Yiftach v'lo echad, Ki yozi v'zimerad Adonai, Vayehi li lishua, Ushratim layim b'saiso, Hayeshua, L'Adonai, Hayeshua, Halecha v'chatecha seva, Adonai tzivot imanu miskav lainu Elohei Yaakov Sela Adonai tzivot Asher Adam B'Teach Bach Adonai Hoshia Hamelech Ya'aneinu V'Yom Koreinu La Yehudim Hai Tahora Besimcha V'Sason Nikar K'Di Elanu Kotzi Yeshuotesa Uv'Shem Adonai Ekra Yainanai 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 Savri Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei Pri Hagafen Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei Minei Besamim Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei Mirei Haish Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamagdim HaKodesh Lecho Benor Lechoshech Ben Yisrael La'amim Ben Yom HaShvi'i L'Shish Yemei HaMaseh Baruch Atah Adonai Hamagdim Ben Kodesh Lecho Hamavdil ben kodesh lecho, chatoteinu imcho, zareinu v'chasveinu yarbe kacho, v'hakochavim b'layla, zareinu v'chasveinu yarbe kacho, v'hakochavim b'layla, Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishvi, Eliyahu, Agiladi, Vimira v'yaminu, Yavu Elinu, He Mashiach ben David, He Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov and almost Chag Sameach.